Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to J by J. My name is Ilya Tovbis. I'm the Artistic and Managing Director. I hope you've been with us for the 5 days we've had the festival going on, and also through Thursday we're continuing. I'm expecting that most of you have already had a chance to watch Army of Lovers, but if you haven't, it is on our platform through Thursday, and I'm sure this conversation will make you even more interested than you were before. It is my great pleasure to have with us the director of the film, Asaf Galay, and of course someone that you're very familiar with if you've seen the film, Jean-Pierre Barda. I'll give just a really quick bio. Jean-Pierre, you barely need, but again, if you haven't seen the film, he's a Swedish and Israeli singer, actor, makeup artist, hairdresser, and of course, most importantly, in some ways, the founding member of the pop group Army of Lovers. And Asaf, those of you that have been coming to our festival probably recognize his name and perhaps even his face. He's been with us a few different times. He has sort of at least two careers that happen simultaneously. One is as an explorer and curator of Jewish and Israeli cultural history and visual media. He's curated museum exhibits on Jewish fashion designers, the Dreyfus Affair, on Amy Winehouse and others. And of course, then his filmmaking career has traced the history of Tel Aviv Yaffa. He's analyzed Israeli humor, examined the life and legacy of the Zionist hero, Joseph Trumpeldor, and he's a self-described Yiddish activist. And some of his recent films that you might recognize are The Search for an Israeli Superhero and The Muses of Isaac Bashevis Singer, which were all at our festival, as well as others. Welcome to both of you. Very thrilled to have you, and very happy to share the film.
Thank you.
Thank you. Small correction. I'm not
Yes,
Swedish.
please.
I stayed French. So
sorry, yes, French, but by way of Sweden and now Israel. Yes.
And Israel.
Good point. And we'll get into all of course, the multi-identities that you have in between. So just a quick housekeeping note, we're going to be taking questions from the audience sort of throughout, so you can already begin dumping them in. We have audiences that are split across two platforms. Some of you are on Zoom and some of you are on Eventive. You're getting the same platform, so don't worry about missing out on the other one. For those on Zoom, please use the Q&A function, not the chat function, to ask questions. It's down at the bottom of your screens. Just type your questions in there and I'll try to make sure to get to them. And on Eventive, there's only one chat function, so use that to ask your questions. And again, I'll incorporate them shortly. But let me just start off with this. I'm going to start with Asaf. And that's, how did you come to the story? I know that as a child, you were a rabid fan of the band, but how did you come to feeling that this needs to be a documentary? And particularly in your career, you have this really interesting sort of duality, as I mentioned a little bit in your bio. You focus on these great literary intellectuals and then also on incredible pop and musical icons. So what drew you to Army of Lovers and to Jean-Pierre Barda?
I think that, yes, you can say that sometimes on my film, I do films about very high culture, what is literature, and then I do more about things that are low culture or more popular, like comics and pop music. But still, the questions that drives me, it's about all the films that I'm doing is about the Jewish modern culture, the contradictions that is making it, that drives it, and this is the big questions that I always like to ask when it's come to Isaac Bashevis Singer or when it's come to Army of Lovers, that I was the biggest fan of them in Israel.
Great. And Jean-Pierre, it's noted, I think, quite lovingly in the documentary that you love to watch yourself, whether it's on stage or in the mirror. And I imagine to some degree this is more your performing self than your personal self, though perhaps I'm wrong in that assumption. I'm wondering what your experience was like the first time you watched this documentary, and perhaps you've seen it a number of times. Do you feel like it's captured you well? Are there any aspects that you felt like were missing? Just talk us through a little bit what your experience was like watching the film.
Yeah, first of all, yeah, my persona on stage and outside stage, sometimes there's no limit. They just blend, and sometimes there's of course a big difference. We all wear different clothes when we go to work and different clothes when we stay at home. So back to the question about watching the video, the movie the first time, it was really exciting because I really didn't know what to expect. I was never involved in any anyway in any directions of what it would what could be highlighted in the video in the movie. So I didn't expect anything, and I was really happy to see it. What I liked with it was that it captured a non-political um, a non-political approach, which I really like, because many times when it comes to Israel and when it comes to Zionism, it tends to get hardcore political, and in this case, I think he captured very well the drive that I have, that is, you know, a drive seeking for family, for love, and not so political. Of course, there is a political side to my Aliyah as well, but it wasn't the focus in the movie, and I really appreciate that.
Great. And then could you, staying with you, Jean-Pierre, could you catch us up a little bit what's happened since the film? I understand you're now in Sweden, and if you can talk a little bit about that. Are you still going back and forth? What's going on with your life in Israel? You're still a professional hairdresser. Just catch us up a little bit, what's happened since.
Okay, so as many nowadays, there's not much traveling. I'm more or less stuck in Stockholm waiting for a vaccine. I have lung emphysema, and I had a heart attack last summer. So I'm in a risk group for the COVID-19 to develop a more complicated COVID. So I'm stuck at home, ironically, because one of the reasons I came back to Sweden was that I would be closer to my mother. My father passed last this fall, so I thought it would be nice to be closer to her. And unfortunately, now we can't meet, so we speak on the phone every day. But she's also in the risk zone. So what happened since the movie is that, well, I really enjoyed and started to find my way around in my life in Tel Aviv, and I was working as a hairdresser again, though my plan was not to work as a hairdresser, but to work with something different. So I tried a couple of different things. I worked as a gardener for a year, for example, and that was really, really fulfilling and nice. But in the long run, it got to be a little bit heavy to work in the heat and outdoors. So I went back to cutting hair. And so last summer and I was doing the back and forth to Sweden working, was still having clients. And last summer, while I was here in Stockholm working with clients, I had a heart attack. And since that, I haven't really been able to get back on the saddle again. My father passed in late October, and that itself was not only that he passed, but there was also, there was so many years that we were without contact, since my father actually threw me out of the house when I was 15 and a half. But we managed to, during the years, we managed to patch up, but not, not completely. And so when he went, luckily I managed to, we got a couple of amazing moments about a month before he passed. And I really wanted him to, it was important for me to know that, what happened. And he was from a different culture. It was a different time. There were so many differences. It was never about, hurting me or wanting me harm or anything. It was, he just didn't know how to cope with the situation. And I know that he regretted the outcome of it, of course. And so did I, because there was a lot of things that was supposed to happen that never happened. I was supposed to, for example, I was supposed to make my Aliyah in my 20s. That was the plan. But since I left home much earlier, my life took a total different direction. And then in March, last February, I fell and broke my hip. So it was kind of an overload, and I decided to get treatment in Sweden instead of Tel Aviv. And so I'm waiting for a vaccine, and when the vaccine comes, I will be traveling back to Tel Aviv again. I will try to spend a little bit more time in Sweden here with my mother. She's 82, she's 83, and she's her health is not the best, but with the God's help, she will be with us for many more years.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad to hear it sounds like a very difficult year in so many ways, but that you're up and healthy, and with your dad, that there was at least some measure of reconciliation, even if not entirely. Of course, that's difficult. And this actually leads me a little bit, Asaf, to a question for you, which is something that I loved about the film, and perhaps it was because I myself did not know much about Army of Lovers. Maybe I'm a little bit too young, or just missed the original current. I loved the band, but I loved that this was not just a film about a pop group and their music, which was incredible, and the costumes and all of that. It was also very much, I think, a film about aging, and a film about finding meaning, and a film about really somebody finding a new home and belonging. What I'd love to ask you first, Asaf, and then Jean-Pierre, probably a version of this to you as well, is how is this received? I imagine some of the fans of Army of Lovers may have wanted more bands, and I imagine others might have felt, oh, there's so much more here. Why are you so busy showing all of this music? How did you sort of balance all of that, and then what has the reception been?
Yes, there is this Army of Lovers have a big fan club all over the world. From Europe to Japan, all over, and the fans want more and more facts and the gossip behind the scene of the band and the history. That most of it you can read it on Wikipedia, or you know it already if you are in the Facebook club of the fan, what happened with each one of them. And I wanted to do like a bioepic about the band. I wanted to tell another kind of story. And I wanted to tell a story about a quest for home, the quest of a big pop star that was first he found his, after he was kicked out from his home, he found a new home, the band, for 30 years, and then he looked up when he was 50 years old for a new home. So maybe some fans are disappointed. They can do their own film. I don't like this kind of films that that are very, I called it wiki doco. I want to tell something on my films that is more universal, that also people that don't know nothing about the band can feel related about it, or people that don't related, that never read a book of some writer, the things that they will do after is will go and read this great writer. So I want to say something behind in my films. This is my style, but I know that there is other styles of documentaries that like to tell everything in by all the small details.
I'm very partial to your style, so happy that you made it this way. Jean-Pierre, I think for both our audiences, and for me, one of the more compelling, again, it's a very multi-layered story, but it's about your Jewish identity. And what's interesting is it doesn't seem to me, and again, of course, correct me if I'm wrong, that your Jewish identity did not form upon moving to Israel. You clearly had it from, at least to some degree, from the school and from earlier in childhood. Can you talk a little bit about your journey, how much moving to Israel has changed your relationship to Judaism, and how has it developed as you've aged?
Well, my move to Israel was actually, it was so much more than just moving to Israel and finding my Jewish, reconnecting with my Jewish roots. It was also reconnecting with a lot of family stuff, the French part as well. Like moving to Tel Aviv, it's almost like Tel Aviv is, some parts of Tel Aviv are almost like Paris. There's so many French people. So for me, and that was the part I wasn't really prepared for it. But the moment I got there was suddenly, it was so obvious that there was another part of me that was looking for fulfillment as well, and I got that being in Tel Aviv or being in Israel at all. And as you say, my Jewish roots starts way before I moved from home. I was in Jewish school. There is a Jewish school in Stockholm, and I was there from the 2nd grade to the 6th grade. And in the 6th grade, it was a tradition that we used to do. We used to go the whole class for I don't know what you call it, a field trip or something to Israel. So we used the last year we used to collect money with bazaars and different stuff, and to get money so we could afford to go to Israel. So we went to Israel, the whole class, for a bit more than a week with the rabbi from Stockholm and our teachers, and it was amazing. And I was in Bnei Akiva, which is an Orthodox Zionistic youth organization. I'm not from an Orthodox home, and I'm not Orthodox myself, but all my friends, my best friends, were in Bnei Akiva, and there was a non-religious group as well called Habonim, where my brothers were, and my friends were not there. This was the unreligious group. So yes, that tainted a lot of my youth. And I think also what is interesting with the documentary, and that could be interesting for the fans, is that they get answers from all these Jewish associations or connections that we have in the songs. When I'm saying Jerusalem, for example, I'm saying it with the Hebrew name, and I recite part of the morning prayer in one song, and so on. So I know that a lot of people and a lot of fans have always wondered how come this connection to Judaism and to Israel. And then we have the song Israelism, of course, which is our ultimate tribute to Jewish culture.
Great. I'm going to start incorporating some of the questions from the audience that are beginning to come in. Just to stay on a somewhat similar topic, we have a question from Eva. She asks, the coverage of the ban on Israeli news was interesting. If Jews are offended by coverage of their religion in your song, is it anti-Semitic? Can Jews make fun of themselves and not be considered anti-Semitic? So I'd love to throw that first to Jean-Pierre, and maybe Asaf has some thoughts on that as well.
I think that this is better question as a philosophical question about Jewish humor.
Sure.
You can take it like the producer by Mel Brooks, that they are laughing about Hitler. So is it okay, or that you make humor about Hitler? I think that part of the Jewish humor is that you have no limits. You can laugh about everything. And this is the power of the Jewish humor, also in a very tough times during the hardest time during the Holocaust. The Jews never forgot their humor, and they were still, and this was the way to get power and to survive. And this is the Jewish humor. You need to laugh about everything. And if you lose your humor, you lost your fight. This is my philosophy.
Yeah, humor is a very important way to deal with with serious topics. We use humor a lot in the band in that way. And I think there is there is similarity with African American culture. Like we are not allowed to use the N-word, but they can use the N-word, and we have the same. I think it's the same with Judaism. I think we make joke about the Holocaust, but when somebody else outside Judaism makes jokes of the Holocaust, it's different.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. One of the lines I liked a lot, I think it was from you, Jean-Pierre, is a Swedish phrase about how can you be serious about something if you can't laugh about it. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but I thought it was a very nice and strong statement that really carries through here as well. I'm going to take some more questions here. One from Jenny Adler. She asks, what was your favorite Army of Lovers live performance? And this is going to be to both of you. Jean-Pierre is obviously a front man, and then Asaf, what was your favorite?
My favorite was in Tel Aviv, in the small club. I thought it is, and I think that also for the audience, they were like only 1 centimeter from the stage. It was so intimate, and the energy was so big in the small nightclubs. I know that Jean-Pierre had a big performance and stories that blowing your mind in Kazakhstan, that he met there, the daughter of the dictatorship or in Kazakhstan, and he had performed Poland and for Putin. Really crazy stories. But for me, the best one was in Tel Aviv in the small nightclub with 100 big best fans in Tel Aviv.
Well, I must agree. I must agree with Asaf. There's so many performances that are really very special. I mean, all of them are more or less special in a way. But for me personally, there's two occasions that are really huge for me, and that is the concert, the small concert in Tel Aviv, and also the one we did on the open air after the parade. That was really amazing. But the small night show we did was really intimate, and it reminded me a lot of the early days shows that we have in smaller clubs. That was really amazing. It was an amazing atmosphere. And then the second occasion was not actually a show, but it was when we did the spring collection for Jean-Paul Gaultier in Paris. So those two were the highlights, I think.
Great. Take a question here from Marion Usher. She says, thank you so much first for this wonderful film. The characters showed their vulnerability, and much of the conversation demonstrated incredible insights into themselves. Asaf, what did you have to do to have each of these people feel so safe with you to be so revealing? And Jean-Pierre, you can also say, how did Asaf make you feel safe enough to be so revealing?
It's a good question. This is always the relationship in the documentary between the director and the interviewees. They can feel safe, and it's not like the 60s when P.D. Baker was doing a movie about Bob Dylan, and he was just sitting around and he could do the whole scene, or Martin Scorsese. In our days, you cannot do fly on the wall, what it's called, with big pop stars. Like there was the film about Taylor Swift, everything there, you see that everything approved, everything was scripted. So to feel this good relationship with the interviewer, I think it's honest. You need to be honest, you need to be authentic, and that's all. And, there is no a lot of magic, new tricks.
No, the whole team was really, the whole team was really easy to work with, from the sound guys and even the producer. And the meeting we had when you came to Stockholm, and we met in Stockholm, after that meeting, I really felt such a friendship, and I felt there was so much honesty, and it felt very easy. The only difficult thing for me was not to look into the camera, because I'm so used when we do the videos, you work with the camera, and here I wasn't supposed to work with the camera, not in that sense. So a lot of times we had to cut and don't look into the camera.
I had a question here about the scenes with the IDF, which are some of my favorite, the army scenes.
It's also one of the favorite scenes in Israel.
Tell us a little more about that, and then I'll get to the other question. But what in Israel made it such a popular scene?
I think that the face of the guys that looking at Jean-Pierre for the first time, Daniel, and he's like this for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
it's
he
unforgettable.
Seemed out of his mind, excited.
They were so sweet.
Yeah. It was like a child discovering a new toy. It's like he had never seen or experienced this kind of joy before. It was truly incredible. The other question I had, though, and I don't mean this in a terribly pointed way, but I'm wondering if there was any contradiction either felt or you were worried about between volunteering with the army and the sort of original pacifist message of the Army of Lovers. And it was dealt with a little bit in the film, because we talked about how the army is also helping out in earthquakes and other moments. But was there any part of you that felt conflicted, or any fans that perhaps said, well, what are you doing working with the army if you have a pacifist message?
Well, actually, no, not really. I was really thrilled. The army is such an important part of the Israeli daily life. young do the guys do service for 3 years, and the girls are in it for 2 years. So if you want to get into the Israeli society, I think it's important to get a little bit of the inside. But I mean, you don't really get that when you do this kind of volunteering, because you only get to see the peaceful work that the army does, of course. But it's still something. It's still something, and I think, you know, it's a very. Most of my friends that visited me in Tel Aviv, they were all of them were reacted the same. They were like, "Wow, this wasn't what we expected." And I asked them, "What did you expect?" And they go like, "Well, we thought there would be militaries everywhere, and you know that this would be a war zone, and I thought it was, and this is the way it is. Of course, it's not a soft army, but they are soft in a way that you." Actually, I was surprised that you don't notice it more in the daily life in Israel.
Just to give a historical context, that in Sweden they didn't have a war for 200 years, and in Israel or USA, I think every 5 years there is another war or operation. So really, this is a big shocking thing to the state of mind of people from Sweden. They don't know what is a war.
You know, this is the country where the National Day only became a holiday just a few years ago. For many years, the National Day was just like an ordinary working day. So Sweden is a country with a very weak national identity, and I think that's due to this long time of peace. Then the glue becomes other stuff like sports and ABBA.
ABBA and Army of Lovers.
Well, speaking of ABBA, we have a question here about if you can give a little bit of an update about the other band members, the other three, originally two, and then obviously it became a 4-person group. Can you tell us a little bit about what they're doing today?
Yes, so Alexander he's been writing for a couple of years. He's a modern social philosopher, and he's been writing a couple of books, philosophical books on modern philosophy, and on the topic is the internet age and the social media and how it affects us. And Dominika is successfully running a public relations, a PR bureau. And she also got married to a very, very famous Swede. He used to be the Minister of Finances in the last government, the government before this one. And he's very, very famous here in Sweden. He's the one that is held responsible for keeping Sweden out of the worst of the financial crisis when that happened. So he's very popular, and they got married last year. It was
an amazing wedding. They all, I think, came to the wedding like 4 prime ministers.
Yeah.
And then all the gay scene, and everybody danced for Hava Nagila in the palace, in the Swedish palace.
What did she wear to that?
Not a lot.
Did she? Not a lot.
No. She was decent. She had a very decent wedding dress, designed by the same person that did the costumes for the band. By the way, she's a very. I mean, we're still very close friends. And Dominika also released her memoirs. She just turned 50, and she released the memoirs called "I Do Whatever I Want," or "I Do As I Want," or "As I Wish," something like that. And it's been very popular, of course. Everybody wanted to know the story behind how she met her husband. He was married at the time they met.
Both
so it was so at the same time it was a big scandal because his ex-wife didn't take it so well.
And there's, I think, one more member, yeah? Camila?
La Camila, oh, so no, she's not a member. The band today consists of 3 people. It's Alexander, Dominika, and me. Mm-hmm. And before that, we've had different settings. So the band started originally with Alexander, me, and La Camila. Mm-hmm. And after a couple of years, in the beginning, it was, you know, our breakthrough was so, everything happened so fast. And it was really difficult times for, you know, everything happens very fast. You're suddenly very famous, a lot of money, and she didn't cope very well with the situation. And in the end, we had to end our work with her because it didn't work. We tried the reunion in 2000 something. It still didn't work, and then we tried the third time in 2013, and unfortunately, she's I think, you know, I don't want to speak on her behalf, but I think she has so many issues. She's personal issues she's dealing with also, and so it didn't work out that time either. So unfortunately we're not in touch, but and we're not in touch with Delacour either, who was in the band for a while together with Dominica, but she left the band.
Yes. She wanted, both of them left the band and wanted to do their own solo careers.
Yeah.
That became big fiasco. If you saw the film and you understand that, don't try to sing by yourself if you were in Army of Lovers.
Right. Well, and also, if you're in a band that doesn't sing or play, then it's even harder.
I think one of the assets of the band is that we always realize our limitations, and we always worked around the limitations. So we write the materials and we orchestrate everything ourselves, and then we don't mind using, you know, we don't mind doing playback to each other's voices or the chorus voices. It doesn't really matter because we are behind the material 100%.
This actually leads me to a question. So in a way, and I think your band, among several others, is responsible for this. What you did at the time was really pretty revolutionary, especially the pansexual message of the band, the colorful, transgressive lyrics, the sort of timeless outfits, generally kind of outlandish ethos of the group. In a certain fashion, and I don't think entirely, but I think in some way, mainstream society or pop music has caught up to this. Do you feel a sense of accomplishment, or how do you conceive of yourself sort of as a conceptual artist in that discourse today? Do you feel like there's more to be done in that direction, or perhaps your attention is best done elsewhere because it's, to a degree, mission accomplished?
I think there's always something to be done. And also, let's face it, we live in times where everything is so fragile. I had a friend in Tel Aviv who said, a straight friend, and he said, like, why do you celebrate Pride? I mean, you have everything now. You can adopt, you can get married and everything. And I said, but first of all, not everywhere in the world is the same situation. And secondly, it is very fragile. I mean, it would take just one government to put an end to a lot of the freedom that we have today. So I would say it's an ongoing work. But it's really great to see that a lot has happened, and there is a lot of babies out there.
I think.
Do you have any? Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Is a conceptual. You can see like Lady Gaga from our days that have also her lyrics that she's singing more about the New and Old Testament. Her style of how she dressed, very performal. Also Beyonce, like a Queen, and this is a big thing. And their clips, you can see a big influence of Army of Lovers, because Army of Lovers don't have the same budget, but you can see same style, same kind of conceptual of what is a pop artist compared to what was a pop artist in the 80s and the 90s.
Technically, it's different today. I mean, in our days, we didn't work with Photoshop, and we didn't work with CGI. Everything was not digitalized yet. So I think today there's a lot of new tools to work with, which is really amazing. But then also, I mean, I think our most fun videos are those we made with with the tightest budget, the smallest budgets. So it always comes down to ideas, and then how you execute them is something, you know, that will always be different.
It does make me wonder if the ease with which it comes today, not that Lady Gaga, you know, doesn't have talent to back it up, but that the ease, especially of the internet and memes and commercialization of it, actually cheapens the concept a little bit. Because I think, like you're saying, you have to put in so much work into the philosophy behind it, into the ideas behind it, when it's all handmade and you don't have the same kinds of models to base it on. I wonder who you feel like is really carrying on your musical legacy and your conceptual legacy well today. Is it Lady Gaga? Is it some others? And Asaf, where have your music tastes taken you today? And this for both of you, Jean-Pierre, like who's carrying on your legacy if you feel like anyone is doing it well?
Oh, I think I believe that there is so many carrying our stuff, and it's in a way to say our stuff. This is like stuff that is global. I sometimes, you know, a thought grows in one place and it occurs at the same place. It's just the zeitgeist, I think. So, but there is so many, and there is so many small bands that are not really, you know, super commercially successful, but they still do great stuff. I think, I mean, YouTube is just proud with it.
Absolutely.
I feel that Lady Gaga is a big, she's like the granddaughters of Army of Lovers. I really feel the same, you know, she got her Judah and she got very thing similar to Army of Lovers. Also that her personalities, that her out of the stage is so different. This is and she's still keeping her personality out of the stage. So different ones, like Madonna, she's Madonna in her private life and on the stage. So the same thing you could say about David Bowie, Michael Jackson. But Lady Gaga, she is a big difference between both of them. And of course, when she performs, it's a big show. It's a queen. It's a renaissance. It's amazing. I love her.
I love the way you speak of it, like having grandchildren. I'm not married. I don't have any kids. I used to joke and say I was the grandmother of Conchita, the guy that won the Eurovision a couple of years ago with the beard and the makeup. Just amazing, amazing.
Yeah. Yes. But maybe in the US they don't know about Eurovision, but they will know soon.
We know more and more, and especially at least in Washington D.C. where we're from, it's such an international city that it's actually Eurovision's a very big deal here. A lot of the embassies hold parties, not of course during the COVID year, but in a normal year, it's a very big deal. In fact, in our festival 2 years ago when it was held in Israel, we had a huge screening and party of it, and a lot of people came out. So I think that there's more and more awareness, certainly. Of Eurovision here. Well, great. I think we're getting close to wrapping up. I'd love to just turn to you if there's anything that you wish to say to our audiences, ways to catch the film and sort of extend the message here. Would love to hear. And if not, just thank you so much for the film and for the career and for the work and for spending time with us. Thank you seriously for all of it.
Thank you.
And any last words, Asaf or Jean-Pierre? If not, that's okay too.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to show my coming up film in the festival. It's about Saul Bellow. It's the first documentary film about his biography, and soon, I hope that in May it will be an outside screening of the film.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Asaf and Jean-Pierre. Wonderful to see you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all the audience for being here, and have a great day. If you haven't yet caught the film, you can see it through Thursday at jxjdc.org. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.